much, but it does a recording, but it also does a transcript. So it really puts me off. I have to shut it so I can't see it.
Yeah, that's right. Now it shows us again. Yeah.
Very clever. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming this morning to hear about Open Research Europe. Mika and I have been in conversation for some months now. And actually, it was his intervention that meant that the ERANET projects could be part of Open Research Europe. The question came back, well, I'm not sure we're eligible to publish here. And I went and spoke to the European Commission, and they made a decision that, yes, they want ERANET projects to be able to publish here. So, yeah, thanks for the prompt. And I'm glad it's helped, because actually it's opened it up to so many different projects. I've been in contact with probably 70 or 80 different ERANET projects, all with many, many projects underneath, and they are all eligible to publish now. So it's really great news.
Sorry for this additional workload for you.
No. It's been a big help, a really big help. So thanks.
Okay, great, for sure.
So I will just share my screen now, and I will tell you who I am and what's interesting about what we do. So hopefully you can see my slides now.
Yeah, thanks. Shows
yeah,
perfect,
okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Ruth Fisher, and I work for F1000, which is a publishing company in the UK. We build publishing platforms for people to publish their research on. So we have our own one, which is called F1000 Research, which is a publishing platform where you can publish open access with, you pay an APC. But we also have built quite a lot of platforms for different funders as well. That are diamond open access platforms. So, for example, we have one with the Wellcome Trust, we have one with the Gates Foundation, and all of those researchers can publish their research for free with us. So the European Commission wanted to launch their own publishing platform, and they put a tender out for it in, I think, 2019 or 2020. And we were quite a natural partner for them, I think, in a lot of ways. We already do this work with other funders, and our values are quite aligned with what they wanted. So we won the contract, and we spent the first year building the platform, and we've been live for publishing since March 2021. So my role on the platform is to kind of commission research into the platform, so speaking to researchers about their articles and about how they can publish with us. But it's also a lot about education and outreach, so talking to different groups about open science and open research, and also kind of helping people to understand what Open Research Europe is, because I speak to loads and loads and loads of people who have heard of it, but they don't know what it is or what it does or why it's of interest. So yeah, a lot of my job is just speaking to different people and telling them what it is. So Open Research Europe publishes across all subject areas, which I think it is really a beautiful thing about it, because so many Horizon funded projects are very interdisciplinary. There are lots of people working with it from different backgrounds, and it means that research is produced that doesn't perhaps naturally fit into one category or another. So I think it's a really ideal place to publish that kind of research. We've published, well, it says 265 here, but we've actually published just over 270 articles now. Should have updated it. So that's 271, I think, since March 2021. And yeah, there's a real variety of research on there already. At the moment, we are indexed in lots of different places. So we've recently been accepted into Scopus. So that was great news. I think I'm not entirely sure if we can find the research there just yet. I think they're still building the link between our platform and Scopus, but we have been accepted there. Also ERI Plus, which is like a humanities one, the Directory of Open Access Journals, Google Scholar, InSpec, which is an engineering one. And the kind of we have plans to apply to lots more. So we have a plan in place in the moment. We've applied to PubMed, so hopefully they will accept us. And yeah, the other thing to mention about the platform is that it's kind of owned and run by the European Commission. So they they have the direct say on everything that happens on it. So they work with an international scientific advisory board who they've chosen themselves, and they are people that are leading figures within all of the different subject areas that the platform covers. And these people are really very involved in the high-level strategy about what we do, how we engage with people, and everything really. So they direct a lot of what we do. But we're also partnered with lots of other European institutions. So Eurodoc, the Global Young Academy, and LIBA Europe, and also Open Air and people like that. So we're kind of very well integrated with all the different European, I guess, initiatives that are around to support open research. So what is actually interesting and different about our platform? Because I think it is quite innovative and different. So I'm going to give a few definitions before I go into more of a description, just so you, so I'm not using terminology that doesn't make sense. So the first thing I would say is that we're a diamond open access publishing. So this means that if you have Horizon funding, and if you're part of an ERANET project, you are eligible to publish for free on the platform. Obviously, it's not for free because there are costs associated with it, but the costs are paid directly by the European Commission rather than by the project or by the individual themselves. You don't even get asked for money, just you put in your grant number and then that allows you to progress on. So in the case of ERANET projects, if you want to publish with us, you'll need to put in the ForestValue ERANET number, and that will allow you to access the system. We'll have lists of different projects who are part of it, and so we can check that you're eligible, and then you'll be allowed to pass through the system. So we are an author-led platform. What does that mean? That means that we don't have a traditional editorial board structure like on other journals. So we don't have an editor-in-chief and associate editors who handle the articles, decide whether to send for review or whether to reject and things like that. The idea behind this is that on a lot of journals, particularly highly selective journals, the editors are asked by the people that run the journal to reject a huge amount. So I worked before at a big international publisher, and for the most selective journals, they were asking editors to reject 90% of articles before peer review. So before they've even been considered by their peers, they're rejected and said, no, we don't want you to be part of our journal. This is really about kind of boosting impact factor for the journal, and also making sure that they're publishing the most novel research. This is something that the European Commission didn't want for their platform. They think that they're funding lots and lots of research. They don't only want the most novel things to be published. They want all of the research that is useful for the research community to be published and made available for people. So this means that we work on a sound science basis. So if your work has been correctly conducted and if you've written it up properly, it should eventually pass peer review. It should go through that system and pass peer review. If the work is flawed, if the study design is flawed in some way, it won't pass peer review. So we still, it's not that everything passes peer review, but it just means that if your work has been done correctly, it should pass peer review. The final thing that I think is quite different about this platform is that we use transparent post-publication peer review. This means that we publish your article online and then it goes out for peer review. And this peer review process is totally transparent. So the author knows who the reviewer is, the reviewer knows who the author is, but so does the reader, because when they come to read the article, we publish peer review reports alongside the article with the author name, the reviewer name next to them. So anybody who reads the article can read the review report and see how the author has changed their article relating to the review. So what does that actually mean when you are submitting your article? So the first stage will be that you put in your ForestValue grant number, and this will allow you to pass through the system and to submit your article. As we don't have kind of academic editors assessing the article before it's sent out, what we have instead is a team of professional editors who work with me on these different articles to check that it is going to be suitable for peer review before it's sent out. So the first thing they check is this a scholarly article? Is this research is it fresh research, new research that needs to be published? So this is not a place to publish your deliverables from your project. It's not a place to deposit articles that have already been published. It's not for that. And if you submit that, it will be rejected straight away. When we first opened the platform for publications, everybody thought it was a repository, and we had 100 or more submissions of people submitting deliverables or articles that had already been published, and we had to reject everything. So it's not for that. It's for your unpublished research. If it passes that check, then the professional editors will do quite a thorough check of what is this article. So they'll be checking things like plagiarism, for any ethical issues. They'll be checking, is it properly structured? Is it properly referenced? Are the figures and tables, ready for publication? And they will be also checking the English. They're not correcting the English, so it's not a copy edit, but they will be checking that it's suitable for peer review. At the end of this process, which usually takes about, I think, 2 hours per article, they go through it very carefully. They will then send the article back to the author with some recommendations about how it could be improved before it's published. The author then has the opportunity to make those changes and resubmit it. And if everything is okay, we will then typeset it and publish it online. At this point, it has a DOI, it's visible online, and it's citable, so it's available. It's quite clearly marked that it hasn't been through peer review yet, but it is available there online and people can start engaging with it. The next step is the peer review process. So this is author-led as well. So we ask authors to suggest peer reviewers. The idea behind this is that as an author, you know who you would really like to read your research. You also know who is qualified. So if you go to a research page, you can identify quite quickly whether or not this person is going to be a suitable reviewer. Obviously, we have a team of peer review experts in-house who are checking all of these articles for a conflict of interest. So, you can't submit your granny to review your article. You can't submit a PhD student of yours. You can't submit a very close collaborator, somebody who works with you on, recently on publishing and things like that. So we kind of have these checks and balances in place, but essentially this process is driven by the author. We can also provide some support if people are struggling with this. So, for example, if you're an early career researcher and you don't have a strong network of people that you think you could tap into to access, or if you don't have a good knowledge of other researchers, we are able to offer some support to those people, either through our editorial team or through our advisory board. So, as well as the International Scientific Advisory Board, we also have advisors that we recruit, academic advisors at all the different subject area levels. So both at the, for example, earth and environmental sciences level, but then also beneath that within different topics. And these people help us in lots of different ways. So they support us with kind of ideas, understanding the research community, what's important to them and things like that. But they're also available to kind of help us find reviewers if necessary. But I would say in the time that I've been working, I've never asked an academic editor to do that. So I think the peer review process manages itself quite well as it stands. So peer review process happens. And because the article is already published online, it can't be rejected. So what does this mean for the peer review process? It means that we ask the peer reviewers to assess it on the sound science basis that I mentioned before. So has the research been properly conducted? Is it properly referenced? Are the methods suitable? All these kind of things. So the reviewers are able to provide a normal full text review that they would send to any reviewer, but we also ask them to answer these 5 questions. And the idea is that we can gauge whether or not the article is ready to pass peer review yet. So they can either say that it's approved with the reservation, or not approved, which would be like major revisions. The article, once we've got a minimum of 2 peer reviews, although sometimes it's kind of 3, 4, 5, depending on how many people respond to the peer review requests, we will then send the article back to the author. We ask them to respond publicly to the peer review comments, so you can kind of keep that dialogue going for the reader. And then they have the chance to revise their article and resubmit it. When they resubmit it, we typeset it and publish again, but the older versions of the article are not lost or deleted. They remain online as well. So as a reader, when you come to read the article, you will always be directed to the most recent version of the article, but it's possible to click back through and see the older versions of the article and see the peer review comments alongside it. So you can kind of take in the whole evolution of the article from when it was first submitted right through to when it passes peer review. I really think that this peer review, this transparent peer review process is a really valuable thing, and that's feedback that we've had from our authors as well, have said that there is a really constructive and valuable process to go through. It kind of encourages, I think, reviewers to do a really good job of their review, because their name is going to be next to it when it's published online. And that's not to say that people don't review well for other journals, but I think there's more of a incentive for people to do a really good review. And yeah, I think what it does is it turns this peer review process into something that is really collaborative and iterative. So rather than the peer review process being something that takes place behind closed doors and is something that really only the author and maybe the peer reviewer learns from, it becomes an open discussion which anybody who reads the article can take part in. So they can say, oh, the reviewers recommended this, this article to read, or this method, or, they've suggested this. This is something that I can take away from my own research. The other really cool thing about it is that there's no kind of secrecy there. So I've heard from authors recently, one person told me that they didn't understand something in their review, and so they were able to contact the reviewer directly. There's no kind of need for the barrier there. They just contact them and say, I don't understand this. Can you talk me through what you've said? But also, if someone told me recently that a peer reviewer liked their article so much that they tweeted about it before they had even finished reviewing. They'd not even published their review, but they thought it was so great they wanted to talk about it. So I think once you get past the kind of weirdness of doing things like this in a completely open way, after having done it in a closed way for so long, I think there are really a lot of benefits to doing it this way, and it makes something that the whole research community can benefit from. So how does this process, this cycle of peer review and revision finish? We class an article as being past peer review. So at the end of this cycle, once it has received 2 review reports that approve it, or 1 that approves it and 2 that approve the reservation. So there are only minor corrections really remaining. And at this point, this is when we send it out to the indexes and repositories. One final point to mention about the publishing model at this juncture is we do not have an impact factor on the journal, and we will not be seeking one. This is something that the European Commission are very keen on. They don't want us to get an impact factor for the journal. The reason behind this is that they, as a funder, are moving away from using impact factor as a metric, or at least as the main metric upon which they judge research. It's not really designed to judge individual research articles. It's a metric that's designed to judge a whole journal and how successfully it publishes research. So they are working at the moment, they've put out a statement a few months ago, and they're working to develop new ways of judging research. This is something they're doing in conjunction with other funders, with institutions, with libraries and other publishers as well. It's kind of a huge project that they've taken on. But what it means is that this platform is really kind of an ideological thing, in that they're saying to people, we don't think this is a good way to do it anymore, and we are putting it out there, and this platform is not going to have it. So I know that that is an issue for lots of people. It's all very well the European Commission saying we're not going to have an impact factor, but if you're an early career researcher or somebody that doesn't yet have tenure, your next job promotion might depend upon your impact factor, or your next application for a grant might depend upon impact factor. So we totally recognise that, and I think this is really a platform I think we're ahead of the curve, and I think this is something that is going to change. Lots of people have signed up to DORA, the Declaration on Research Assessment, I think it is, and really it's something that is beginning to change, but we are at the beginning of it. What I would say as well is that we recognise that for lots of people, if you have really novel results, you may need to publish them in an impact factor journal for your career. That's totally understandable. What we do offer, though, is a real variety of different article types. So if you can't publish your results with us, there are probably lots of other ways that you can use the opportunity to publish with us. So we offer articles that are kind of a brief report at the beginning of your research or study design. You can publish a method article. You can publish a data note, which shares your data in a published way. You can publish a software article tool about if you've developed some software in the course of your research. I think we've got about 17 or 18 different article types that are geared to allow people to publish earlier within the research cycle, and also to publish different types of things that they might not have considered publishing before. So even if you're thinking, well, my results just can't be published here, maybe there are other things that you can publish here that you wouldn't have thought of doing before. Right, I will just move on for this. Normally I would ask for questions there, but I think as we're a bigger group, I will wait for questions at the end if that's okay. So what do we think the benefits are of publishing in this way? So the first thing is that it's quite fast. The initial kind of checks that we do, we aim to get the kind of response back to you within 7 days. At this point, how long it takes for it to be published online largely depends upon how fast the author can make the changes to their article and resubmit. But we're really talking kind of days or a few weeks to publication rather than kind of months or even years, depending on your subject discipline. It's very inclusive. So this is about the different article types, the fact that, and also I think about the open science model, we're looking for reasons to accept rather than reasons to reject. And if your research has been done well, then it should be accepted and should pass peer review and be sent out to the repositories. It's very open. So this is about the European Commission's publishing mandate. So obviously, if you have European money, they mandate how and where you can publish. For example, it has to be open access and things like that. Unsurprisingly, we built the platform so it meets those mandates. So if you want to publish with us, then you don't need to worry about that. Reproducible. This is about our data sharing policy. So we mandate data sharing. This is a really fundamental principle of open research, that if you have created data in the course of your research, it should be shared. Part of this is so that the peer reviewers can assess it when they're doing their review, but it's also to make sure that that data remains accessible for other people to look at and use long term. I went to a seminar in the UK a few months ago all about they'd done a big project where they'd gone to research articles in a certain area, and where it said contact the author for data, they'd tried to replicate the results of the study. And then if they couldn't, they'd gone and asked the authors to share the data so that they could. And I think they said in 70% of cases, they couldn't get the authors to send the data, which is, I think, really, really, really not good. People should be sharing this. So we mandate data sharing. What I would say is that we do have exceptions. So if for whatever reason you can't share your data, so I imagine it'd be something like you don't own the data set, or maybe it has sensitive intellectual property or something like that. There are exceptions, but we will expect you to kind of justify why your article is an exception rather than the other way around. And the final two things are that it is transparent and easy. These are kind of interrelated, really. This is about the way that the whole platform is meant to work. So it's transparent, the peer review transparent, everything about how we work is meant to be open and clear for people to understand. This includes the fees, so the fact that you're not paying the fee. We're quite clear about what that money that we charge is used for. So we have on our website a kind of donut graph that shows exactly what the money is being used for when we publish articles. And our fee that we charge the European Commission is €780, which is, you know, I think quite low really in the grand scheme of things for an open access article. And the idea is that it just meets our costs rather than kind of being about driving huge profit for the company. This is also, I think it's worth mentioning, the fact that the European Commission hope to kind of make the platform fully autonomous, I guess, in the future. So they might, I think there is the idea that they might like set up their own publishing company or something. I don't know exactly what it is. I think that's quite a long way down the line. But the idea is that this should be something that gives people an option away from the kind of the public publishers, the private publishers, essentially, that this is something that is publicly owned and publicly available for people. So I will just give you a super quick, gone too far, a super quick demonstration of the platform so that you can see what it looks like and what it does. And then I will stop talking and allow you to ask me some questions. So when you land on the Open Research Europe site, you can kind of see it looks like a European Commission page. We've had quite a lot of feedback recently that it's not very sexy. People have told us that it could be a bit more inviting, so we're working on that at the moment. But as you can see, it kind of publishes across all subject areas, and hopefully it's clear what we do from it, even if it doesn't look very beautiful. So when you come online, you can come and browse the articles that are available here. This is kind of a weird list that you see because it basically throws up the article that has been worked on most recently. So you'll see here's one that's past peer review, and then below it we've got an article that's awaiting peer review. So unless you're very, very keen to see everything that's published, I don't think that scrolling through the list will be that useful for you. What you can do is come and use the advanced search function. And you can filter by subject area. So you might want to go to natural sciences. You can then refine it. So these kind of match the European Frascati, the different levels, the way that they categorize research. You can search by different article types. So you might want to look at a data note, for example. And you can also search by the Horizon project ID. So if you wanted to find all of the ForestValue projects that have been published, you could search by that. And then it should throw up some articles that have been published in that category. However, I think it's fair to say that most people are not going to come and do this on our website. You know, that is not how people find research. Most people are going to use an indexer, or they're going to look for it on Google Scholar or something, you know. So I think I always show that functionality because it's there, but I don't know how useful it is to people really in the grand scheme of things. So what we also have on our website is kind of a way to categorize the different research that you're finding on there. So the European Commission asked us to create these gateways that are linked to funding initiatives. So you can see, for example, excellent science, industrial leadership, etc. These are also very broad. So if you go into excellent science, you're going to find a whole range of things across all different subject areas. So what we have been doing as a team for the last year is creating spaces where you can find things that are perhaps more related to your own area. So in the community gateways, we have kind of subject specific areas where you can find it, what you're looking for. So for example, I launched the Earth and Environmental Sciences one earlier this year. And here we have kind of some information about the gateway. On the right hand side here, you can see the advisors. So these are people that are researching in this area who want to act to kind of promote the platform, and they help me. I am not a scientist at all, and they help me to kind of understand the research area, what's important, and those kind of things. You can also browse articles in this area here. I've only actually tagged one in here, but as a researcher, when you submit your research, you can come and tag research into it yourself, essentially. So if you, when you're submitting your article, you can choose which collection and which area it goes into. It also doesn't have to go into any area if you don't want it to, but if you want to kind of put it into these collections, that's defined by you. You can also track these areas. So if you wanted to find out everything that was being published in Earth and Environmental Sciences, you could track that here. We also have collections available for people to publish in, which I think is the reason that I originally contacted Mika. So these are a bit like a special issue in that it's a focus area within a larger discipline, but they're also not like a special issue because they're not time bound. So if you want to publish in them, they're not going to shut in 3 months. You know, it's kind of meant to be a real hub so that different research on this topic can pull together. So what have we got, I think, which would be relevant for you? I think we've got quite a few at the moment. So we've got things on climate change, agricultural collections. I launched one on innovation and growth in the bioeconomy. We have ones on forestry, I believe. There's a real mixture of things here. Some of them are available. In fact, I think the forestry one might be a gateway area. But basically, there's lots of different areas on the site that you can use if you want. I will also just show you an article so you can see what it looks like once it's published. So here, this is a research article. You can see there are some brief metrics at the top. It's been revised. This is the title, and this information in the end in brackets tells you kind of how far along the process it is. So this is the second version of this article. It's past peer review. And on the right-hand side here, you can see the information on peer review. So these are the peer reviewers, and you can click on and you can read the peer review, and at the bottom you will see the sound science questions that we ask. So is it clearly and accurately presented? Is the study design appropriate, etc.? You can also see at the bottom here the author has responded to these comments. Here we have it's a fairly standard open access article, really, so you can see it's got figures and tables. The only other thing I will point you to are the metrics. So because we're not offering an impact factor on the journal, we do break down the metrics quite clearly so that people can understand how their research is being read. So you can see it looks across Open Research Europe and Zenodo and page views and downloads. We track this information across all the different versions of the article. We have a DOI that does that. It's quite clever. So we can see how it's being read over time. You can see where it's being read in the world, although I'm a bit skeptical about this sort of graph. And you can see the citations, and I think more importantly for the European projects, you can see the altmetric score. So I think you know, a lot of the European projects are really about making an impact on society, and this will show information about, you know, how are people talking about it beyond academia. So I'm going to stop talking now because I realise I've been going on for ages, and people probably have questions. So yeah, I don't know if you want to ask anything, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Perhaps I'll leave this stage for questions to our researchers, real researchers, not myself. So, and just one note here. I was also checking your FAQs section on the website, so that already gives answers to most of questions I had, at least. So, but nevertheless, so if anyone has questions, so please.
Okay, shall I call people
please,
out? So I think
please.
Runa, is it Runa or Rune?
Yeah, Rune from Norway, Research Council of Norway. Thank you for interesting lecture. I was a little late, so if I'm asking questions that you have already answered, you should advise me to see the recording. But I was wondering if this, I'm not that into open publishing, but we are starting to get very concerned about it at the Research Council of Norway. And I see some of the principles you have mentioned now, I have seen before. But is it so that this principle or this method of having this open or transparent review process, is that something special for you, or is that the thing in the open access world at the moment?
Yeah, no, so this is something that is, I think, fairly rare to have transparent peer review. So there are, increasingly more and more open access journals where you can publish your research that essentially follow the traditional model of publishing, except at the end, the author pays and it's made open access rather than a university subscribing, and that's why people can access the content. So I would say that most articles that are published open access don't go through this transparent peer review process. But I think we are not the only people that do it. So I think that possibly some of the EGU journals do it as well. And I think it's also similar to what happens on things like, is it PeerJ or PubJ? I can't remember what it's called, but there are other journals that do this as well. But I think this is probably the most well-recognized journal that does it, because it's kind of been pushed by the European Commission and launched by them. So I think there are different journals within subject areas that do it as well. Also, a lot of them, when they're doing that, they're kind of, for example, reviewing a preprint publicly, and then it's being published somewhere else afterwards. So I think probably publishing it, then doing open peer review is something that's fairly specific to us, actually.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. Great. Tian, hi.
Hi. Again, sorry for being a bit late. I'm also from Norway. Usually Norwegians are quite punctual, but today is the exception. So you said that this has been indexed by quite a lot of places. I checked your FAQ there. Also, you mentioned the Scopus also listed there. Because that is the main kind of search engine, we use in our research institute. But I tried actually to search for the papers there. I couldn't find it in Scopus, and also I couldn't find open this what kind of journal or there, because if I just search it with the keywords, I couldn't find it. Is it still ongoing, or is it?
Yeah, so what's happened is that we have been accepted. So they've said, yes, we're going to host your content. The problem we've got at the moment is that we have to build the API. So we basically have to build the link between our content and their content. So that is still being built. That's kind of development work that's happening behind the scenes to make sure it can. So everything will appear there soon. It's just kind of contingent on this being set up initially.
Okay. Can I ask a second question?
Yeah,
so thank you. So because actually I asked this with Miko and Runa before. It's like we're doing this ForestValue project. It's coming to the end. It's already ended officially. But there in the project we promise, okay, we will have this certain deliverables written in report, and then what I'm thinking now is I'm also talking to the responsible people for the project. They are also interested in not only publishing as a report, but also kind of peer-reviewed or at least have more impact. Let's say more people may read it type of format. So what is in general rules there with regard to if you have something written already in a report? It can be right now, I have not published those because the original goal is we want to just put the report on, I mean, ResearchGate or where we host all our content there. Just make a link, make this PDF. But then if we do that, can we still, of course, it should be differently according to your requirement, and then rewrite a bit to publish. Will there be some copyright infringement, or I don't know, or should we just hold the report and publish your paper first to submit to your place first, and then make a citation in the report and then publish the report afterwards? So what should be the correct order there?
I think essentially what you're saying is it shouldn't be a problem either way around that you want to do it. It shouldn't be a problem, because a report that you would publish on ResearchGate Open Access is not really any different to. It's a different thing to what you would publish as an article. So you couldn't submit your report as it was to the thing. So you would need to rewrite it into article format and draw out the important information. So it would be a different document essentially. So it would be fine to have it in both places. What I would say is that lots of people, we often do things where we go and find people's preprints on servers and then say, why don't you come and publish with us? So there's no kind of issue with it. The only issue would be if you had already published it, say in, I don't know, a Wiley journal or a Springer journal or something like that, then you couldn't come and put it with us because it would already be published somewhere. So as long as you reformat it and put it into an article, it doesn't really matter which way around you do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Benjamin, sorry, I think there's also someone that I'm struggling to see a bit who's got their hand up.
I don't know if I was first, but I just start maybe.
Andreas was first, but you can start.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it. A short question. You mentioned that data also will be available, so the data sets and so on. How can they be accessed, or how does this work?
So what we ask authors to do is to put the data into a repository before we publish the article online. So what you will need to supply to us when you submit is a DOI link to wherever you've put it. So you might have put it in Zenodo, or you might have put it in a different repository that's more relevant for your area. But when you submit your article, you send us that link, and then when we publish, we link the article and the data so that people can click on and access it through the article.
So it's accessible then for everyone, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
and it's
link,
linked to the article as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Then Andreas, then apologies that you got queue jumped.
Well, no problem there. Yeah, I'm maybe a bit struggling a bit with this open peer review concept. Maybe I'm too paranoid, but thinking when everyone knows, okay, you got the names on and everything, and all the comments are published, don't you think there's the temptation that you say, okay, you do a short peer review that's going to be published, and all the core part goes in direct emails between the reviewer and the author or something? Because you can't guarantee that all the communication is actually open, because you can always bypass it as long as you know the names anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is your concern that the research community isn't benefiting because the key arguments are happening behind the scenes, or is your concern that I'm not quite sure I understand what the worry would be there?
Yeah, well, first of all, that it's not as open as it looks like, because you can keep things closed off. Of course, you already mentioned the point that as everything is open, reviewer will not be keen on accepting something that's not really acceptable, because you can see, okay, how could you accept that? So of course so it's maybe, and of course you can always also during normal publication get feedback from other authors, and it's up to you and the other other authors, other researchers, and it's all up to you how far you acknowledge this feedback. And of course you should, but yeah, that's something that's to do with ethics, and yeah, you can never really 100% verify ethics. So maybe it's not so much an issue, but I find I'm a bit struggling with the concept. It's something that I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, no, I can see what you're saying. I think that there is how can I say, I guess there's no benefit to keeping anything hidden. I think the benefit for the author is that this process happens openly, and they can kind of get a very they can build a relationship with a reviewer who they might not have worked with before, they might not know, and they can get input on their work from someone who is outside their own circle. But I think also the benefit for the review, I can't see that there's any benefit for kind of that hidden conversation taking place. As a reviewer, when you want people to read your best ideas in your report, you want people to say, this is, oh, wow, yeah, this researcher really knows what they're talking about, and they've got all these great ideas, and, maybe this is someone I could collaborate with. So I don't, even though I see your point that potentially conversation could take place outside of that, I think that there's no real benefit to anyone to hiding what that discussion. So, and to be fair, I think, it's, I'm not that concerned about that as a problem, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a point. It certainly could happen that conversations go on outside of that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can see it now. And it's and it's not always, even if everything is supposed to be secret, it's not always as secret as that, because after all, for other journals, it's also often that one gets asked to supply some names of potential reviewers and things like that. So it might be possible, and if it's not open, you can't really track what's has happened there. So you just have to trust the editorial board and things like that. And if everything is traceable, and you can look at everything and look at the original versions and so on, I think it's an interesting idea, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I suppose on that point as well, I've worked for some of the big publishers before in this kind of peer review role, and also in smaller publisher peer review, always closed peer review before I came to work here. And it can be a real nightmare, to be honest. I get a lot of, every single author that I've spoken to, people are always trying to guess who their reviewers are, and I can tell you that they have never got it right. And sometimes they're really cross about things that people have said, and they're really cross at, they think who has written it, and I'm like, I can't tell you who it is, but it wasn't that person, and they just don't believe me. So I think, I don't think that if peer review was created as a system today, that we would do it in a secretive way. And I think that it's really something that, as research communities evolve more, I think it turns it from being something that's, kind of can be really mean and can be really not productive, into something that actually fosters new relationships with people that you might not have met before, and other people that are interested in the same topics as you. So yeah, I think it should be a positive thing if people use it in a positive way. Obviously, there are always going to be people that don't want to be positive, but there are some checks and balances there from our side. So our peer review team, if they get a review that is really bad or really caustic, they will go back to the peer reviewer and say, are you sure you want us to publish this online? So yeah, there are balances and checks there, I think. So Rune, do you want to go again?
Yeah, I had a follow-up on Benjamin's question on the data sets and the archives. As a scrapped researcher, I know from my own data sets and my colleagues' data sets that they exist in all the kinds, unlimited number of forms and formats and quality, not the least. How do you secure, or how do you manage all the different formats and quality that such data set could come in.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Yeah.
Unlimited number of problems where I can see with this. If you really should be, if you really should be the journals should be concerned about the quality or have some responsible for the quality of the archived data.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So I would say that, so we ask peer reviewers to look at the data when they're reviewing. So I think that that is a problem that would come up during peer review. To be honest, if the data set is in a bad way, if it's not fit for publication, I don't think that's really our role to kind of get involved and say that. What we do have is we do have kind of like trusted repositories where we can recommend people that they put their research data. And we have guidelines about how to prepare it and things like that. So I think there are some checks and balances in place before it's published, but essentially that is down to the author to determine. And it's also then, if it is, really a problem, then surely I think the peer reviewer will say, look, this is not ready for publication. This data is not in a fit state for this. You need to go away and work on it and prepare it in a way that people are going to be able to use. So yeah, it is definitely a bit of a minefield, open data and sharing it, just because, like you said, there's so many different ways that, even that you can define what data is. One of my colleagues has been doing a lot of research, kind of putting together guidelines for people in the humanities. What is data in a humanities article, and considering those things. So it is broad, but I think that essentially this is something that if there are real problems with it, it should be resolved through the peer review process. I don't think it would be possible. I don't even know, to be honest, that journal editors would, if on a journal where they were it was the traditional editorial structure, I don't think that they would even look at that before it was sent out. I think they would just say, what is the abstract of this article? Does it sound interesting? Am I going to send it out? So I think it's really a problem for the peer review process. But if you have any suggestions about how it could be done differently, I'd be very interested to hear them.
No, I don't have any suggestions, but I see the issue here, and also the long-term question also, that if you submit something in some kind of program that does not exist in 10 years, so in archival like in our own organization, there are some standards that are made to kind of exist for probably centuries to come, or at least decades. But
yes,
when you have all kinds of different statistical programs, especially, or databases that might be unreadable in not a so far future.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I think what I would say on that front is that we ask people, if they have data that is in a format that has been produced through a private program, that they should find an open source program through which they can do it that way as well, so that people at least have an open source alternative to run the data through, that they can do it. If they can't provide an open source one, then we would ask them to, well, first of all, they have to justify why they can't do that, but then they would also have to give people instructions of how to deal with their data when they come to it. So yeah, certainly, I think like the longevity of research data is something that is, I think particularly with older articles and older research, is something that is a big question, but hopefully we do have some kind of guidance there in place. Sorry, I hadn't understood what you were asking before, but there is guidance there for people who are submitting about how they should and how they can make it so that other people can access it in an open way.
This is probably a work in progress also, so
yeah.
like the publishing thing. So
yeah, certainly. I think what I could circulate afterwards is we do have some kind of like data guidelines, so you could have a look at those and see what
No, it was more like touching the issue in principle, because I think it's important for when you introduce such good channels for publishing like this, that should also be considered in the You cannot, of course, do everything at once, but and it's a complex issue, but it should be addressed some time or somewhere.
Yes, certainly. I think I'm going to go and find out some more about this. We have one of my colleagues works exclusively on kind of data and software and how they work together and how we deal with it. And I suspect that she's already working on this and considering it, but I think I'll go and check and find out. And if not, then I think that's a really valid point, and I'll pass that on to her about how we can address that problem, or try to address it, I guess. I think we've only got 1 minute left. Oh, it's just ticked over to 12 o'clock here. Not where you are, probably. Are there any other questions before we finish up? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions afterwards that come to you once you've had time to ponder it, feel free to send me an email. I'll send the slides around that I used today so that other people can look at them, and you're welcome to share those with anyone else that you think might be interested in them. My contact details are on the end, so you can feel free to send me an email if you'd like to discuss anything further. Yeah, so hopefully this is going to be something that's useful for the different ForestValue projects. If you are thinking of submitting an article, please do get in touch with me so that I can kind of advise and support through the submission process. Particularly, I think for the ERANET projects, it's a bit different because we need to kind of check different things than we would do if it was just your own grant number through the Horizon funding initiative. So that would be good. Otherwise, I don't know if you have anything to add, Mikko, or...
Thank you so much, Ruth. So I guess that you have covered it all now, and if there are no more questions from the audience, so then it's more or less clear or unclear, I don't know. But nevertheless, so like I told you, our website already so gives quite a bit of information. I was also trying to look here for the data guidelines and everything, and for sure you have plenty of information available on the website as well. But thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's too bad that this only came up now for at this. Well, we are lucky that we got this chance, but on the other hand, so too bad that this came a bit late for those 17 projects we have already funded, and because most of them are ended already. I don't know if they have any ideas. Well, we heard from Tian Lee, so that for instance they are about to publish still something, but nevertheless, so it might happen that this will not reach every single project. But on the other hand, we have these 8 new projects starting now and so forth, and new ones hopefully coming next year, because we are about to launch a new call next year under a new CSA. So we'll see. This definitely gives good opportunities for the research community for open access publishing.
Well, also, the only thing to mention is that you're still eligible to publish even after your project is closed. So even though the projects are closed, they're still able to come and publish if they want to.
Beautiful.
As long as it's related to the research that they did through ERANET.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, everyone. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more from you when you want to publish.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay.
We'll be in touch
Mika.
for sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay,
Ciao.
great. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.